Holy, last time on Flight Check Dragon Ball Z. Previously, our heroes were facing down the marketing team themselves, Shopify Rebellion. Could they pull out a victory against all odds? This is Flight Check Season 5, Episode 3. We're back once again talking all aspects of FlyQuest LTA. My name, as always, is Sandy Toes, and to my left and my extra left tonight, my fellow hosts Nox War and Curly Double Q. Spoiler alert, fellas, but FlyQuest Dragon Ball Z did manage to go Super Saiyan in their match against Shopify Rebellion. And really Kamehameha'd their way to a 2-0 victory over Shopify. Shout out to Cloud Sidkey, somewhere out there, who was concerned about watching the show tonight for fear of the roasting that we might give him. I'll settle for the tweet from Saturday where, we expressed our sadness that we did not get to see his the pre-recorded video about Shopify's supposed victory over FlyQuest. That'll never see the light of day, and we're all a little sadder off for it. But what's not so sad is FlyQuest started out strong. Quad Player of the Week.
Yes, sir.
Great start to the season. And things are looking good. And I think across the LTA, just the general performance of teams, I feel pretty good about FlyQuest standing right now. Curly, how about you? Just in terms of FlyQuest, they're playing against Shopify, and then I guess overall LTA impressions from week 1. How are you feeling about, we all had FlyQuest first place power rankings. Do we still feel good about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, number one, we won kind of as expected, but you look at the score lines, you look at the way it happened, it also still looked pretty good. I really like that we were able to express 10 different champions right off the bat because of this fearless style.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And Nox, definitely an opponent that I think last week, I talked about them as shades of NRG past, CLG past. But I was wrong, and you were correct in that this entire weekend, you said was going to be just 4 straight 2-0s. You were correct on that, sir.
I was one of 3 people in the FlyQuest Pick'ems to get a perfect 8 points.
You nailed it on that one. Now, the question I actually have for you here is, now that that's happened, does that make you feel good about the state of LTA, that it was just 4 straight 2-0s by the supposed top 4 teams over the supposed bottom 4 teams?
I mean, it doesn't make me feel good, but at the same time, I'm willing to give a little bit of leeway, right? I mean, it's the very first week. 3 different rosters did not have, or 3 different orgs did not have their full roster competing. And a lot of these guys that were imported over, such as like Saint and Loki and Kiene, although I know Kiene's kind of been working with some of his teammates already as it is down in LLA. Like these guys are not very well acquainted to LA culture, to their teammates, to maybe speaking English, so on and so forth. As the year goes on, I expect all these guys to kind of level up because, I mean, from what I've heard, players like Saint and to a lesser extent Loki are all very, very good players individually, and they were performing semi-decently in their respective leagues before they came over here, but it just takes time to level up. So, no, like I said, the 2-0s do not make me feel good. It doesn't inspire a lot of hope. But at the same time, it's still very early, and at least for individual performances, I can see these teams leveling up as the teams continue to learn to gel together.
Yeah, totally. Curly, how about you on your side? Seeing 4 straight 2-0s, I think my concern is, okay, is this league too top-heavy? Will these bottom 4 teams be able to do anything to really push the league forward? Am I overreacting there? Do you feel similarly? Where are we on that?
I mean, I think if this happened in like March, like if this was how Split 2 started, I would agree with you there. But it's week 1, Split 1. The draws ended up a pretty lopsided matchup anyway. Like a lot of like clear biases. Like if you had started, I'd say the closest match on paper before any of this would have happened in the eyes of the people would probably have been Disguised 100 Thieves. Just because of like the lone, the quiet exit of 100 Thieves last split and the hype behind a new team, you know? I think week 2 is going to be a lot more of a litmus test for, okay, what does this league really have to offer? Because it's going to be Fly versus C9. It's going to be TL winning. But then we get to really like look at Shopify, Lion, Disguised, and Dignitas and be like, all right, where do you guys really rank out? You know?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I just think these were probably the expected results, just going off of mechanical, strength and just on paper. And, Cloud9, historically a good team. 100 Thieves, having only swapped out one player, and TL and FlyQuest, as everyone knows, swapping out 0 players. I mean, it makes sense to me that a historically strong team like Cloud9 and 3 teams that made either no moves or one move did very well on their first week back in professional play, while other teams probably going to have to work a little harder to catch up to where those other teams are at. Let's get into week 1 a little bit, and we'll start specifically with FlyQuest themselves. So a 2-0 over Shopify Rebellion, and our first chance to see Fearless in action in NA. Unfortunately, we did not get a chance to see it really, go the full 3 games, and we really have to start digging into the champion pools a little bit. But nevertheless, it was still, at least to my mind, I actually did really enjoy the fact that, okay, all these champs get picked game 1. I'm not seeing them again in game 2. I'm going to get something completely fresh. I'm going to get a brand new game, brand new champs, no running it back, and it's going to be different. And I think I didn't watch a ton of NACL last year, so I didn't see a ton of Fearless. But to see it now in the tier 1 setting, I really, really enjoyed it. How about you guys with Fearless? Do you think it's working out? Do we need to see more of it to have a decision there? How are you feeling on it?
I'm leaning on needing to see a little bit more of it. I personally enjoyed seeing it in NACL because it really made sure players were kind of developing deeper champion pools and the ability to kind of find different ways to sync up with their team despite not playing the same champion every round. Mm-hmm. There is, and maybe this may be nostalgia, so call me out on it if y'all think this is a wrong take, but there's something kind of satisfying about seeing teams plan a specific draft, and specifically best of series, like repeated best of ones, and it's the same comp over and over again, like CLG back in 2021. That kind of stuff was annoying. But in an actual best of series, it's like, okay, I prepped this comp to play against this team, and I will make small, tiny little adjustments in ban phase as needed to try and wiggle our way to a victory. The mind games behind that for me were always somewhat entertaining. I did like seeing that, and especially if they ever did this a salty run back. There's something very satisfying about seeing a salty run back and whether the team can pull it off or not. Right. Or they just go down 0-2 and it's oh, you guys are down bad. that kind of thing's very satisfying to me.
Right.
So so I mean that's kind of personally what I miss about traditional style of best of fives, but I completely do understand, and I actually really do enjoy Fearless. It is very fun to see new champions every game, a brand new comp every game. I do enjoy the onus of how much the coaches have to really prep and understand how comps work together versus how it works against the enemy team. There's so much more to think about in that aspect. So I may be a little bit nostalgic when it comes to the old stuff, but I completely understand liking Fearless too. But long story short, I do want to see it a little bit more. I don't want to see 2-0s. I need to see what game 3s kind of look like a little bit, which, spoiler alert, I would highly suggest you go check out some of the LTA South games, because a lot of those series went to 3 games.
Yes, that's in my ever-growing playlist of LOL VODs on YouTube, which is
so much to watch.
Which is exclusively sourced from Anivia League of Legends highlights. Thank God for that YouTube channel. Otherwise, I would never be able to keep up.
What's longer, your LOL VODs list or your like next series on Netflix?
Hang on. What would the next? It's still the next series because I'm still like I never finished Last Kingdom or Peaky Blinders, and I'm like,
no. I mean like the watch list.
Oh, the to watch list. It's the LOL
yeah.
VODs. It's the LOL VODs. I'm selective on my Netflix choices. That's for sure.
All right.
But yeah, I have started including LTA South highlights in my watching, just due to like I'm gonna need to know about these teams, and at least have like some idea. Curly, to bring it back really quick, and then I actually want to touch back on the LTA South thing. Your thoughts on Fearless and its performance for Week 1? How are you feeling about it?
I mean, I think Week 1, it's like pretty solid because 2 games, 2 completely different drafts is very reasonable. I think every team should be able to pull that off, and it keeps it very interesting, very refreshing. I think best of 3 is really, really good for that. I think it's like if we ever go to like a Silver Scrapes, that's where you might see the flaw of a Fearless draft. And like Nox does have a point. Like sometimes the salty runback is really, really cool. But I think it's going to keep things interesting for a really long time because like eventually I'm sure comps, we will still find the meta. We will still find consistent like plays that teams want to make, but it's going to be a bit more of like, all right, they have prepped this general play style and they've found out 3 different ways to make it happen. Or, okay, they can do this play style or they can do this play style. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting. I think even though it's, well, I guess no, Split 2 is going to be best of ones. Mm-hmm. Split 3 going to go crazy though.
Yes. Yeah. Split 3 I don't think is Fearless.
It is not Fearless. It is traditional.
Right. So it's just
flabbit.
But yeah, I mean, I will say I did enjoy it. I did, I think my final take on it is that I enjoyed that I was guaranteed 10 new champs. But I think, Nox, I do agree with you because ultimately it's really not too much different. I'm sorry to everyone who just heard my Outlook email notification. It's really not too much different from, another best of 3 in a traditional draft format where a team goes, all right, screw it, forget that comp, we're not picking any of those champs again, and they just go and pick 5 new champs. Because that does happen, right? So, like, right. I agree with you, Nox. I do need to see some more 3-game sets in order to see how I really feel about it. But so far, I did enjoy the guarantee that it'd be an entirely brand new game. So there's that. All right, let's dig into, and I see Cloud Sidkey in the chat, so it's the perfect time to talk about the Shopify match. Really popped in at the wrong time. But we'll keep it brief. We'll keep it brief for their sake. I mainly actually want to focus on Quad, and I kind of want to pivot the discussion not so much about the match itself, although we certainly can talk about it, but Quad picking up Player of the Week. Really nice to see at the start of the season. That was really big to me. Curly, I mean, that must have felt really good to see for you. What were your thoughts on him picking that up in his performance in the matchup this weekend?
I mean, he was absolutely reliable in his position. Literally only dying once the whole series, racking up kills on his ear, racking up assists, and like just having a really good showing on Cass. Like he really showed up, and I always love to see FlyQuest as the Player of the Week. It doesn't matter who it is. So yeah, all around good feelings.
Yeah, 100%. Nox, how about you? Quad Player of the Week straight off the bat. I mean, it feels good.
Oh yeah, it feels amazing. I for a brief moment thought it might go to Masu for a second, but I really do appreciate it going to Quad on this one. I thought Quad did a lot of great roams, a lot of coverage for Inspired through both games. Had a lot of playmaking, had great Cassiopeia. Overall, I was just very, very satisfied with Quad's play this weekend. I don't think he was overly flashy or anything, but he's just every single fundamental checkbox that you can check off, he checked off every single one of them, and it was just very crisp, beautiful, ethical, heavenly play, and that's what we want to see.
All right, I need you to define for me what ethical play.
Yeah, what is ethical play?
Because that does imply that there is such a thing as unethical play.
There is unethical play. It can and I mean, I'm sure someone can define it better than me, but I'll try and give you my best definition of what unethical play is. And typically, I think of unethical play as people who get away with things that they should not get away with.
Okay.
And they're rewarded for it, right? Like they get into positions where they got lucky. Actually, you know what? A perfect example of this is Jensen's Tristana game last spring. Everyone was praising him for it, but a lot of the play was very unethical because it was a lot of just cleanup stuff, and kills were just kind of handed to him. And so everyone thought it looked good, and everyone, like, the KDA looked great, but it was kind of unethical play because it wasn't really him earning the kills. It was just kind of him getting fed off of, like, his team doing a lot of work for him. That's unethical play for me. I thought Quad had a very ethical play style this past series because a lot of it was, like, him earning everything that he did for his team and him for himself. And that is why I believe he deserved Player of the Week this week.
I now want an ethics review of like every game every week, or as many as I can get. Like, all right, which team played more ethically to you? What is Nox's opinion on that?
LTA VOD reviews, ethics.
Or we should get like a little gauge of like, all right, how ethical was FlyQuest this week in our win? Like, all right, did we earn it or like did we really get handed it?
Right. So, Nox, so under this definition, would like a cheese strat be unethical play? Or is it like kind of a mixed bag there, depending on the strat?
So it's a mixed bag. You can have cheese strats where it's like there's a reason that you went for the cheese strat. Like, you know for a fact, and I bet you Whippo probably pulls this off all the time because he actually takes time to study like who he's playing against. But say someone has like a typical pattern in, say, top lane, right? They go for a typical trade pattern in this certain champion matchup. The opponent happens to know because this person typically tends towards this particular trade pattern, they can do something that would normally in this trade pattern not work, or in a normal like matchup not work, but they decide to go for this cheese and it rewards them for it. That, in my opinion, is an ethical cheese. There are times though where someone will try and go for a cheese and it's just a coin flip and they get rewarded for it. Like, if they decide to sit in a brush level 1, not having any scouting information, just hoping that the enemy team walks in and they punish the enemy team for that, that's an unethical cheese. They didn't earn that. That was just them hoping and they got lucky. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So is like, to throw it across the sea, is the Baus ethical because he's him, but unethical if he was literally anyone else?
Okay, well now you're getting like into Schrodinger's ethics at this point. Which player is it?
If you put the Baus in a box, does he cease to exist? Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah,
If you're standing at, two tracks, and on one track the Baus is tied, to the track, and on the other track there's 5 disguised players on the other track, and a trolley is coming down and you can pull a switch, which one, do you pull it or do you not pull it? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
These are the
you got to go for the disguise because the boss will use that Scion passive to break your Nexus.
These are the kinds
disguise won't do that.
These are the kinds of questions that you have to answer on this show.
Welcome to Intro to Logic with Noxwar, League of Legends edition.
Right, exactly.
Spoiler alert, that is the one class in college I got a C in. That is the only class in college I took a C. I don't know why. I struggled in that class.
I did pretty good.
It did not make any sense. Like, I thought it would make sense to me because, like, I try to think very logically. It made no sense to me, man. It completely...
Nah, granular logic is ridiculous. It's absurd.
I think because I did Socratic logic in college, and that was a lot more like mathematical at times, and so that.
Oh yeah, I did not do mathematical. Mine was simple sentences, and I felt like a dumb kindergartner going, "What does this sentence mean?"
Totally. All right, let's pivot back to reviewing the match a little bit. So, very interesting to me, just looking at the drafts, just to start off. I mean, Bwipo's post-match interview was kind of right in that 4 months out of Worlds, these were basically two comps that we could have seen them run at Worlds, with the exception of Bwipo's Ambessa in Game 2, right? Like, but you could swap out that Ambessa. Obviously, Fudge was on the Cassante, but swap out that Ambessa for a Renekton, right? Or something like a Cassante, anything like that, and that like completely lines up with what FlyQuest was playing at Worlds 4 months ago. So it's really interesting to me to see them go, at least publicly, seemingly to like something super comfortable for them week 1, which I think makes a lot of sense. Did you guys have any takes on the draft in week 1 for FlyQuest?
I'll be honest. I don't even really want to comment on FlyQuest draft because it just felt like Shopify didn't know how to pick ban. Period. Like, I mean, you let 2 of our most comfortable champion, actually maybe even 3. I don't know what level of comfort Bwipo would rank his personal pocket picks. I know Urgot's up there, right? But
I'll admit I was a little worried when I saw the Urgot bust out. I was a little.
Yeah, I always am.
Yeah, Bwipo on any of his pocket picks, like, I'm not, every fan, let's be honest here, every fan gets a little bit anxious. There's a little bit of butt clenching that happens.
Nah, I'm waiting for the day he can bust out Swain or Singed. I'm waiting.
But
one day.
Either way, I guess for me, it was just a matter of, like, you let 3 massive comfort picks go through on the FlyQuest side, and then Shopify drafts a comp that just, I don't even know how you're really supposed to execute on it. Like, I don't know what it's really supposed to do. You have like kind of side lane split, and you have poke from Varus, and then you have kind of poke, but also like team fighty Hwei, also with like engage from contract. Like, it's just kind of a hodgepodge of different things. It's just a hard comp to execute, I feel like, and it's nothing that's really strong altogether. And it's nothing that like they can really like as a team gel together to like, hey, this is how we're gonna punch back. So. Yeah, and that's game 1. Game 2, honestly, kind of the same thing. The dive of Vi and Cassante, and then you have a poke kind of zoning mage of Victor. Kind of a very weak fall-off AD carry of Caitlyn that kind of falls off very quickly. That's meant to kind of be lane dominance, but didn't really have lane dominance because you're versus a Jhin Nico. And then a Maokai support, which doesn't really help all that much in lane and is kind of helped. The top and jungle and support of Shopify do not coalesce very well with the mid 80 carry of Shopify. And so, long story short, I don't think FlyQuest even had to work all that hard to deal with these drafts.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I think Shopify was just put in a very tough position to even deal with what FlyQuest was drafting. I don't even think the play was all that super horrendous from Shopify. I thought the actual Rift gameplay was actually somewhat okay. But it's just so hard to deal with FlyQuest with the play level that they're displaying and the comps that they're having. They're getting from game 1, and B, the games like, or the champions that Shopify are having to play. Like, you're just putting a hard time on yourself, man. So I'm really hoping Revan like gets his drafting skills together against other teams, because that was kind of rough.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, throw on top that Shopify is playing with a sub support, right? Like,
yes,
it's not even their real team.
Yeah.
Although I'm not going to give him too much slack on that, because that is the same support that B-Voy has been playing with for most of the past year. So there's actually a little bit more synergy there than if Seos had actually been in.
Right.
Seos is not even in North America. He's not even scrimming with the team. There's actually a little bit more, like, Seos may be better than Zeyzal, that's debatable, but at least there's more scrim synergy with having Zeyzal there because he's been there.
Right. They already know some of the limits, what they can do, how each other thinks. Yeah. It's almost like, well, maybe they should just stick with Zeyzal at this point. If Seos can't get the visa thing sorted out. Curly, how about you? Just in terms of draft or overall gameplay, what were some things that stood out to you about this week 1 matchup?
I mean, mark this as the only time I've ever actually liked the Urgot on Bwipo. Maybe second time. I think there was a Worlds time that it was actually okay. But to go over to Shopify's side, it honestly just looks like 2 solo queue matches to me, which sounds pretty flamey. But it's because, like, especially game 1, it's like, all right, you got the bot lane, which, I would hate facing that bot lane in solo queue. And then you got Hui, your mid laner's like, I'm just gonna pick this OP mage. And then your jungler who's like, all right, I'm gonna pick something that can roam real quick. And then your top laner like, all right, I'm gonna do my lane. I'm going to survive my lane. And so not necessarily thinking about how they line up. And in the end, they don't line up. Game 2 is very question mark to me too, because like I'm not really sure what the Maokai is trying to do in that whole comp. I can see a lot of other things working out, but like the Maokai is a big question mark for me. Maybe someone else could explain it to me. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like it provides some engage. It also kind of provides some peel. It's a tanky support. But I don't know. I don't love it. You have a lot of engage from the Vi already.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of what I would have preferred there instead. It's a struggle. I just don't know what it adds.
Yeah.
And I think I just didn't love... I'm not loving Caitlyn right now as it is. So maybe that's part of it for me.
Maybe. I will say this, though. You can see this kind of across the whole league. Because for the most part, you can see the expression of the current meta in solo queue, which is like tank engage solo, or I mean supports. It's like the thing to do. There's a reason I'm personally in my support arc right now playing Leona and Rel.
Yeah.
It works.
Leona, Rel, Rakan was here during the weekend.
So the fact that we were able to figure out a pretty good answer with the Nico Jhin combo, like I respect us for having that. But it's kind of funny because, like you said, this is a comp we could have seen at Worlds except for Ambessa. Yeah,
no, 100%. It really did feel like a Worlds comp for us, and I think that's smart. Going into week 1, I am a little concerned that like teams could start to do things like target the Ivern in the bans, right? Like I don't know. Do you guys feel like the Ivern is a bit of a crutch pick for us, or are you not as worried about that as me?
I don't consider it a crutch as much as, okay, we know we can do it. Who else is doing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, we got to do this to win. It's like, we've got a tool that we know we can use that works.
100%.
Let's use the Mouska tool.
If anything, it should be terrifying for teams, because I guarantee you what's going to happen now is teams are going to start banning it. And eventually what's going to happen is, like, Inspired is going to show other picks. It's like, okay, maybe we need to ban this now. And he may let it slide for a little bit. He may let it float under the radar for a little while. But the moment playoffs comes back around or he gets back on the international stage and teams are like, oh, he hasn't played it since the week 1 of LTA. Like, surely we don't have to ban it. He's going to whip it out and he's going to style on some kids. And then it's like, oh, shit, that's right. We do need to ban this stupid champion. So that's probably what's going to end up happening. So, yeah, no, it's not a crutch. It's just a legitimate threat that teams have to be aware of at all times.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I am, to be honest, I'm excited to see what else we start to display during the season. If there is anything new and exciting. I'm glad that Bwipo did pick up the Ambessa. It does seem like a champ that he can really get into, even if maybe mechanically he wasn't quite there on yet. I don't know if you guys saw. I think it was a tweet from Loyota that was basically like, Bwipo playing Ambessa this weekend just shows you how broken he is, because he's not even utilizing the champ to its full like abilities with all the cancels and whatnot, and he's still absolutely clearing on the champ. So I'll be interested to see how he develops on that champ. Obviously she's still kind of new, so still needs some time to...
She's funky to play, I'll tell you that much, especially more mechanically demanding than most other top laners, just because of like the Callista passive and all that stuff. It's very, very trippy sometimes.
Yeah.
But
no,
it can be very fun.
I mean, I think it'll be really interesting. All right, let's move forward from there. So obviously the 2-0 for FlyQuest. Just want to chat very quickly about the rest of the league super fast. So we had TL with a 2-0 over who was it?
Dignitas.
100 Thieves 2-0 Disguised. Although I will say Disguised kind of did put up a fight at times. It didn't look terrible.
They
did. Game 2 was better than game 1, but
yeah,
they need more time to gel.
It did give me a little bit of hope for Disguised. I will be honest. I was like, okay, they might not be garbage. So there is that, and then Cloud9 beat Lyon Gaming, and I'll be honest, Lyon does not look good. Lyon might be the worst team after that performance. There were some moments where I was like, I don't even know what they're doing right now. There was some really questionable stuff in that match.
What was very interesting is, did either of you listen to Pros earlier today?
No, I did. I didn't get to it yet.
APA very soundly, with a lot of confidence, said Shopify Rebellion is the worst team in the league. And it's not even close.
Interesting
wow.
Take.
So I guess I don't know.
Is he just hating on Palafox there, or?
I mean, he did not drop Palafox's name once. He just was. Shopify is far and away the worst team in the league currently.
Interesting.
He said Leon was not great, but he was just very, like, he said it, I think, 2 very distinct times of Shopify is the worst.
Dang. I mean, we know APA, we know the kinds of things he says. I mean, do you agree with him, Knox? Like, are they the worst team right now? After watching this past weekend, it's 8 games total. Can't really make any judgment calls, but like, they looked better than Lyon did. That's for sure.
At least on stage games, I don't think I can agree with him. Mm-hmm. However, I have heard behind the scenes that Shopify is not looking good in scrims.
Right.
It is looking real rough. So I don't know if Leon is having some okay scrims or if Shopify is just running it down, and they're like, don't get me wrong, they played FlyQuest. It's hard to show up against FlyQuest, but like maybe they're running it down and they're actually an okay stage game team. I don't know. We'll have to see next week when Shopify play versus Leon, because that'll be actually your kind of go-to tell match of who's the actor.
I will say we will very quickly get a good barometer of where these teams stack up, because we get Dig Disguised and Shopify Leon next week.
That's a pretty funny lineup.
Curly, how about you? Any interesting takeaways from week 1 of LTA North?
I mean, like with Leon, I did see an interesting tweet about like, how does this team communicate? Because it is objectively the most diverse team. And it's like, all right, what is the calls here? How do you figure out how to bridge that gap? So
broken.
Very broken English. Yes.
Yeah, potentially.
Just saying champion names, or just say champion and Baron. That's probably about it right now.
Yeah. The other thing I'm hopeful for is like I want Dignitas to be able to show up a little bit more, just because we got Surdy over there. Mm-hmm. Like I want the teams I'm rooting to be overperforming are Disguised and Dignitas, because I want Disguised to have a good showing in the league, and I want Surdy to have a worthwhile first season in the LTA after such a long road getting here. And like, he still looked real good if you look at the score lines and everything, and like being able to hold your own against Impact for your first tier 1 experience, especially in the performance he's been given in the last year, is like pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Pretty good vibes.
Very respectable. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Knox, you mentioned scrims earlier, and speaking of scrims, there's been a ongoing discussion since some strong words from Bwipo post-match. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. Streaming scrims. In fact, there was a Andy Barton tweet from over the weekend that I'm going to pull up right now. He tweeted, I think it's in the replies somewhere. Oh, maybe it's
somewhere.
I can't find it now.
Boom, boom, boom.
Here,
oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, so, I mean, it wasn't really anything, but, I know, so David Shynock always does, like, a Twitter thread where he live tweets his thoughts on Hotline League, And then he had a follow-up tweet about streaming scrims and whatnot. And Andy Barton agreed. All he said was agreed! Exclamation mark. This was on January 21st, so almost a week ago. And then over the weekend, Bwipo said basically to the effect of, hey, other teams, what are you hiding? All the other teams, and I'm very loosely paraphrasing here, but all the other teams, we suggested the idea of streaming scrims to them. They all said no. Apparently Palafox was like, we didn't say no, but then they didn't say yes either. Palafox was like, we thought about it, and then said no. So, okay, ultimately you said no. But I think this is a really interesting discussion because there's so many ways you could take this, where there's, multiple outliers. We're currently on one outlier, which is no scrims are streamed. And then there's the other outlier, which is you stream every scrim, which, okay, maybe also not the best thing. Is there a happy medium here? Nox, I know you had a particular take, and I want to hear from you first, because you definitely have some thoughts on this, I know.
Yeah, and so just to set the stage, I am for scrims, at least one block of scrims being streamed. I am for it. However, I just kind of wanted to play devil's advocate a little bit. Because I think a lot of fans are just kind of too gung-ho about the possibility of like, oh, scrims can be streamed and we can watch your favorite players more and we can maybe get a little more in tune with their personalities. And so I wanted to go over some of the reasons why this is not such a good idea. First being is that a lot of the messaging behind what Bwipo and Andy Barton are trying to convey in streaming scrims is so that way we can improve the region, right? So that way other teams can watch other scrim blocks from other teams scrimming each other and maybe pick up things on like how players shot call or how players think or how they decide to do their macro movements or how they think about drafting, so on and so forth. And my big thing that I don't think I've seen a lot of people point out about this is just having access to that does not necessarily help grow the region. It just helps you identify what those teams' strengths are so you can prepare better for them. It is not going to help you later on when you reach the international stage and you're not going to have access to those level of scrims and you're just going to be sitting there floundering as your level of prep is not the same quality it was back regionally because you had all the scrims handed to you with all the comms and all the decisions and all the thoughts. That's just not how competition works. If players and coaches could actually get behind the idea of maybe group discussion or group combines and discussing how the scrims went and actually taking time to cross mingle between teams to learn, hey, this is why this decision was made, or maybe coach, or it could be even coaches doing this, why this decision was made, why my player decided to do this, why we wanted to try this particular strat kind of thing, and actually pool their knowledge together, then I could see a reason for doing it. But the way that I've seen everyone talking about the streaming scrims, it's not for that, it's just for entertainment purposes, which is a good thing, and I think it should be monetized, which I can get into here in a second. But yeah, I don't think just streaming scrims actually does anything to help grow the region. There's not enough thought process behind it. There's not enough intention behind it. It's just entertainment,
right,
which is all well and good. But to have the messaging behind like it's to improve the region, I don't quite buy into. There needs to be more behind it. There needs to be more thought. There needs to be a little more care into it. And how that looks and how that's developed and how that's implemented, I'll be honest, I'm not smart enough. I'm not deep enough in the scene to understand how that would even work. But I feel confident enough in saying just streaming scrims is not it.
Could, you talked about how improving the region, is part of the messaging. What if improvement was not necessarily like, oh, we're going to make top 4 at Worlds every year. One of our teams always makes semis or something like that. But instead, like, okay, we're going to increase viewership. We're, going to improve the region structurally. Like, if it was meant from that sort of way, would you agree with that? Although I will say, the way Bwipo was wording it sounded to me more like he was talking about leveling up the region as a whole, making us better competitively. That's how I took it, at least. But
Yeah,
if someone were to mean it otherwise, I would be a lot more on board with that.
And that's how I took it too.
Yeah.
And I do think it could be good for viewership. I think there's an absolute massive point to be made in streaming these scrims with voice comms. You get to listen to all the guys like joke around together. They get to you get the inside picks and knowledge of why they're deciding to do these things, which as a fan is always awesome to hear. We love hearing like coach snippets on football or like soccer coaches yelling at their players like, hey, you need to go do this, stick on this guy, whatever it may be, right? We love the insight as fans. It's great. And so for that reason alone, yes, it's great. I think it absolutely would grow viewership. But coming from the viewpoint of like it's going to help improve the region, I actually legit don't buy it. There has to be more done than just streaming the scrims. So yeah, in that regard, I'm going to thumbs down streaming scrims. But I do think as a whole, like I said, because before I made this whole thing, I made the statement of like I'm actually for streaming scrims because I think you can monetize this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
literally, teams, you have however you want to set it up. You can have it on the org account. You could have it on player accounts specifically. But you say, hey, you pay $5. You can watch this specific player's point of view on this scrim, and you get it. You get it for like every scrim block that they stream. You want it to do the whole team? You know what? We'll take $5 off. We'll call it $20 for the whole team. Oh, you want comms with it too? That'll be an extra $10. It's such easy monetization, I think. And on top of that, you get great clips out of it that you can continue to like put on social media. You can advertise with it. You can continue to like draw fans in. I think it's and maybe Riot shuts this down because they don't want teams doing this for whatever reason, because it could be taken as a competition or whatever. I think Riot would be absolutely idiotic to do that because teams need as much money and connections as possible right now to make it work. But yeah, like I think you should absolutely monetize this. Like let teams stream their scrims and monetize it. Let fans watch the players they want to watch. And I think you can have some great storylines develop from it. You can get some great knowledge from it, and then you can just kind of go from there. You can do so many other creative things with it, I'm sure, as well.
I think, like, and Curly, I do want to let you jump in here, but I want to say one thing.
It's all right. I'm letting Nox play devil's advocate. I've got I'm waiting.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. Like, in terms of, you talked about, maybe Riot would have a problem because competition issues. I think the argument there, at least to me, is really clear that this is not a competition. It's practice, right? We see in-houses get streamed all the time, no problem, right? Like, they had they had Champions Queue, right? Which is not like it was supposed to be a more competitive environment, right? For top tier players to play in, that were doing some kind of in-houses. Like, it's not, in my mind, it's not competitive because no one's playing for a prize pool. There's no prize pool in this, except for maybe like subs that get thrown the players' way or the FlyQuest team channel way. So I just don't see any avenue there to make it like a oh well, we got to shut this down because it's competition. Curly, I know you've got thoughts. Check in.
No, so it's shut. Like, I don't think Riot would shut this down at all because every team across their leagues has like a streaming portion, like Fnatic, T1, FlyQuest, Team Liquid. Every team has like some stream arm that just generates revenue kind of on their own and like brings something back to the org and puts their face out there. This would just be more, okay, the org itself is putting it out there. So I see no reason for them to want to bar this. If anything, it kind of benefits them more because if they're able to grow the community, if the esports teams are able to kind of connect with people more, put everything out there, have more opportunities for engagement, it makes the game have a better chance of becoming more popular so that they can keep the player base up and maybe make the leagues as a whole, not just the teams, the leagues as a whole, gain more viewership because they saw these scrims. They were able to engage with the players, find some more play styles they like, because maybe some people don't want to take the time out of their weekend to watch the games, but they're studying on like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. They have it just in time for scrim block. They kind of watch it on their side screen, and then they see some stupid scrim stuff going down, and they're a little entertained. and they're watching Whippo cook something up, and they're like, oh shit, you know what? Now I'm a fan of FlyQuest. Or they're watching Impact just lock it down. And they're like, oh shit, now I'm a fan of Team Liquid. I want this player to succeed. So I think for all that, there would be absolutely no reason for Riot to want to shut this down, because it would only benefit them in the long run. I don't think it would get the same treatment as Nintendo kind of does with some of its Smash stuff as a couple of years ago, where the money has to be back in their pockets. Like Riot, for all intents and purposes, I do think has had some questionable decisions when it comes to where they put their money and how they handle it. Yeah. I don't think this is a place where they would make that call. But to go back to shut Nox down completely about all the competitive part, if everyone is a god, no one is a god. If everyone sees everyone's data, if everyone has access to scrims, it doesn't become anything about who can hide their plans best, who's been cooking in secret. It becomes, okay, who can use the information that is readily available to everyone and put it to the test? Whose scouting team is putting in the effort? Whose players are putting in the time outside of practice? Who is just that good off the bat? If everyone has access to everything, we all become better. And sure, maybe that might be region locked at first, and maybe that might, if we streamed everything for the entire season, maybe NA takes a huge dip when we go to Worlds, because okay, China and Korea can, and like the Southeast Asia as a whole, can just look at everything that's happening in North America, and hopefully this would cross-pollinate down to South America as well. So sure, they can get an analysis on everything, whatever. Give it another year, because we're all constantly pushing ourselves to be better, because we raised the baseline by giving everyone the same tools. Okay, now we're kind of showing up. And then by the other merit is like, if you put everything out there, now you have to be more creative to overcome everything, because there's a lot more variety. You can see all the options. Do you want to tuck yourself into a hole, and can you specialize that nichely to overcome everything? Or are you going to be an all-arounder? So I really do think from a competitive aspect, it's actually just as good as a community building aspect.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I really agreed with one of the points you made, which was that, it can be difficult for a certain section of the, fandom to watch the matches on Saturday and Sunday, right? Like, when I want to watch, I have to carve out, if I want to watch, live, I have to carve out 2, maybe 3 hours of my very precious weekend in order to sit down and watch the FlyQuest match. Which, if you're also a fan of traditional sports like I am, is already competing in the fall and winter with pro football. If you like basketball is on for there's some basketball game on every night for 4 or 5 months. Hockey, it's the same thing. Baseball's basically from March through October, so it's there's a lot of choice available. So, and the very interesting thing about all those things, yes, they've all got 30 plus teams, but there is a game on of some sort. Might not be your team, but there is a game on pretty much any night you want to watch some basketball or some baseball or hockey. And actually, to bring it back to the esports scene, LPL and LCK have tapped into this a little bit, where they've said, costs be damned, we're going to run this ship every single day. LCK is, Wednesday through Sunday, I believe. And LPL is, I think, basically they were doing one best of 5 a day, which is a weird way to do it, and I don't love that. But every day there was a match, right? And so you missed the match yesterday? Cool. You're busy? You can watch tomorrow's match live, right? Or LCK, it's hey, you miss, Wednesday's best of 3? You can watch Friday's best of 3s. No problem. With LTA right now, you get 2 shots. You get Saturday and Sunday. that's not a lot of opportunity to sit down in front of the TV or in front of your computer and watch the matches. Having scrims be available, in some way, shape, or form, whether that's like, and especially this would work for East Coast people, I think, where, if there's like a late afternoon block that's on the West Coast, right? That's like let's say they're doing a block that's like 3 to 6 p.m. on the West Coast. That's like 6 to 9 for me here in DC, right? That's like primo. Home from work, not doing anything, just, relaxing until I go back to work the next daytime. So, like, that's like a fantastic time for, getting some eyes on, scrims and whatnot. So, I mean, that's just like some of my initial takes. Knox, both Curly and I have talked for a hot minute. Any responses to the things that we've been saying?
I mean, at least in regards to the weekday versus weekend stuff, I mean, I'm on the same page. You and I were one of the very first people on here to say I kind of preferred the weekdays because it worked better with our schedules. Let's be honest here, Sandy. You and I are we're kind of old men in this particular era of all these sports.
Core JJ is still older than both of us. Yeah, we've got that.
Yes, so. Yeah, him and Impact both are still older than both of us. So in that sense, at least we're not the oldest, but we're getting up there. So in regards to that, like our schedules are in our actual 9 to 5 jobs. It was better for League of Legends to be during the weekdays after work. It made sense. In regards to Curly's earlier argument for the streaming of scrims, and then maybe we can move on to the next topic, just to keep it quick and simple. Yeah, Curly does have a point. Like it would possibly elevate players because it has everyone on the same level of access to tools and knowledge and seeing how people do things. I 100% agree with that. I think the point I really was trying to get across is I don't know if I trust players and coaches enough to put in the proper systems to utilize this new information that's being fed into the system. I think top teams like Team Liquid, Cloud9, and FlyQuest could probably get use out of it, but I'm not necessarily confident teams like Disguise, Shopify, Leon, who are very budget rosters and very budget organizations currently. I know Shopify is working their way up. I don't know if I have the confidence that they're going to implement the systems to utilize that information properly. And because of that, I don't think it's really going to help them. If anything, it's just going to open up their strats to the other higher tier teams that will actually be able to implement those strats. And it's just going to continue to push them further down until they can implement those systems. And then, yes, at that point, because they're implementing those systems, steel sharpens steel, the region will eventually begin to rise. I'm just paranoid that that's not what will happen if we implement this right now. I need to see these orgs step up and put systems in place to be able to handle this level of information that will be coming to them.
No, I think that's fair, and I think that's a good place to leave it. I mean, I think overall what I'm taking away from this is that we all like the idea in general. We're just differing on how to implement it.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be an ongoing, conversation, that I think the community will continue to evolve on, and new thoughts and new, perspectives will be put out there. I'm sure somebody in the, LTA scene will make a comment, eventually. Maybe, if FlyQuest drops a series, somebody will talk some trash back to Blippo or something, and that'll spin the whole cycle back up all over again.
Please let it be Impact.
I mean, maybe. We'll see.
I don't want to lose, but I like when he shit talks. That's what I'm saying.
That's
like, I would hate losing to TL, would love hearing Impact shit talk.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on forward. Let's talk about week 2 of LTA North. Previewing that, so we've got a banger matchup on both sides of the upper bracket. Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves, and then our boys in green, FlyQuest, taking on Cloud9 Kia. I believe is their proper name now.
Yes.
So how are we feeling about this matchup? coming out of pretty good win over Shopify, Cloud9, clapping Leon. Curly, where are you at? How are you feeling about this matchup?
I'm comparing like kind of what they went for. I think it's going to be more interesting than I had expected in the off season. I admittedly wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about Loki. Granted, I don't know if giving the matchup it's like the best assessment. But I think he's going to be very interesting. Thanatos also looking a little bit better than I felt he did last season. I think it's going to be a fun round, you know? I'm very excited actually to see how that bot lane pans out because it's kind of like young versus old. Because even though Busio is not quite Rook status anymore, coming up on his 3rd year, he's still on the younger side of things. And Masu, this is only his 2nd year. So it's going to be a very young bot lane against a very classic throwback bot lane. Like, I'm pretty sure this was a bot lane before I started watching LoL esports that did exist on this team. Right. So it's going to be very interesting to see the 2 generations go up against each other because I've always felt Sven is actually a pretty solid ADC. I didn't used to like the guy. I've gained respect for him more. Him playing support, he actually got really solid at it, but he's a damn good ADC. So I'm very excited to see how we lock it down there as to where my eyes are going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Nox, how about you? Anything that's going to be drawing your attention in this Cloud9 matchup?
I think my big thing for Cloud9 is in a lot of the APA was talking about it in pros earlier today, along with Sniper. But Cloud9 already has their vision of how they want to play the game. They're pretty well synchronized on that, and they understand what they need to do to achieve their goals on the Rift. I think, and you can see it in the gameplay a little bit earlier this week in playing against Leon. The execution of what their ideas are not always quite right. It's not quite there. There were like little tiny things that kind of happen. You're like, you were a little bit off on that one. So with that said, this will actually probably be the best match up until, spoiler alert, FlyQuest versus Team Liquid in the best of 1, which is a shame that it's the best of 1. But yeah, this will probably be the best match in the entirety. This will actually, okay, here's how I'll phrase it. This will be the best series because the Team Liquid FlyQuest match will be a best of 1. This will be the best series in all of Split 1. So yeah, I think this should be very good. I think Cloud9 will put up a fight. I'm trying to debate if I want to go 2-0 or 2-1. And I'm really not sure on it because I think it doesn't come down to how we're going to play. I feel confident in how we're going to play. I think it's a matter of, does Cloud9 manage to execute on their vision of how to play the game properly? If they can, I think they'll take a game. Otherwise, it's going to be a nice 2-0.
Okay, that's interesting. I think I'm going to wind up going 2-1. Once again, I'm going to be the pessimist once again. Still,
not to throw you under the bus, but the only reason you did not get 8 points this past week,
was
Sandy,
because I did not pick FlyQuest 2.0. Yes, this is
Yep.
You didn't pick FlyQuest 2.0? Did I pick FlyQuest 2.0?
You did.
I think you did, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Like, I know I should have, but like,
I almost pinged you in the Discord Pick'ems channel. I was about to call you up, and I'll do it here.
No, I mean I think that's a reasonable thing to do. I should have been pinged and made fun of for sure. Yeah, no, I think for me, like, Cloud9 does have the capability just with these players to take a game off of us, especially I think in the early parts of the season. So I'll be interested to see. I think I'm also kind of picking the 2-1 just because I want to see what we bust out in the game 3. You know, I just want to see what happens there. But I do think that Cloud9 has the capability to take a game off of us, you know, in a best of 3. And so that's why I'm leaning that way. Curly, I don't know if we got the score prediction.
I didn't put a score line, no.
But I'm curious to see what that might be.
Well, I think you're right. C9 does have the chance to take a game off us, but I don't think they're going to take a game off us.
I knew that's where you were going with that.
You know? So it's going to be a nice FlyQuest 2.0 next week. And then we, of course, get to go right into Team Liquid after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
presuming it is going to be TL, I mean, I presume we all feel confident it'll be TL in the final round. Yes.
That's going to be a fat Team Liquid 2-0 over 100 Thieves.
You
It's
think
not going
so?
to be close.
You,
Oh,
really? All
I
right.
know. I'll be confident.
I mean, yeah, I'm also.
yeah.
I also
100
have
Thieves
TL.
struggle versus
All right,
DSG.
so I mean,
There's
so
no
let's.
way.
I mean, let's throw it out there. Presuming we do go up against TL in that best of one, how are you guys feeling? Is TL gonna get some revenge, or are we going to solidify our grip as the number one team in LTA North?
Oh, we're gonna knock them right back
the
down.
I'm gonna be the optimist this time around. I think we get a clean dub.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's
yes,
just
sir.
gonna look like Worlds 2024 all over again. So.
I'll be the cautiously optimistic one. I'm gonna get this in favor of us a 60-40. So,
Okay.
Because here's the thing: if this was a series, I would say that we take this series. But it's a best of one. You can pick out any draft you want. Well, not any draft. Obviously, you're still banned. But you know what I mean.
It's blind pick. Actually, you know what?
it's blind pick. Could you imagine?
They should have done blind pick for this best of one.
That would be pretty
actually
neat.
have made me so excited for this best of one.
That would be kind of hype. Actually,
Blind pick best of one would have been great.
But yeah, my only problem is that it's a best of one, and
Yeah.
so it is in a sense a little bit coin flip because this is a team I have the second most amount of respect for in the league right now behind FlyQuest. They are a good team. They are performing very, very well. I am actually legitimately worried for them. Even in a series, like I'm not confident against them. I do think we would win, but I can't quite just signal, hey, FlyQuest has got it. So with that said, with the best of one, I will always lean FlyQuest, right? They have shown more recently, even in the games this past weekend, they showed a little bit better in my opinion, but Team Liquid is a good team. I won't be surprised if in the best of one, Team Liquid takes it, but I will predict FlyQuest to take it.
Yeah, that's fair. Curly, how about you? How are you checking in on this?
I'm leaning FlyQuest. I'm going to give it, I think 60-40 is a very reasonable assessment on that because like I still respect Team Liquid very much. And I think it's going to be a really, really good match, especially if they play up to snuff. But we're just going to come out on top. You know, we've really honed in over summer and Worlds. We've really, to me, shown we are the better team. These are big runbacks. So unless they hit the gym hard, we should still be better than them.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair take. Let's quickly look at losers bracket, and I'll be honest, this is where I'm the most intrigued, frankly, because even if like nightmare scenario happens and we drop to Cloud9, I am not worried about beating any of the teams currently in losers bracket to still qualify to Brazil. Like in my mind, we're pretty good to go to Brazil one way or another. But, you know, the Dig disguised match, I'm kind of looking at that as like, that's kind of hype to me. Like that.
No, that'll be a fun match.
Like, frankly, like,
Yeah.
besides the Fly C9 match, like, that's the most hype match for me. I'm really interested to see how those teams match up.
Honestly, I feel like both lower bracket matches are kind of fun. I think Dig DSG is pretty evenly matched, I think, and then I think Shopify versus Leon is also pretty evenly matched, I think, in my opinion. So I honestly don't know how I'm going to do my pick'ems on these two teams whenever it comes around to this, because that won't be it won't be this weekend. It'll be next weekend.
Well, that Shopify Leon one, maybe
we'll
get to see if APA was right and Shopify really is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first round is on Saturday. It's going to be.
Oh, I apologize. I cannot read.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It's all right. It does get a bit confusing because it's technically still part of round one, which is why it's hard to notice on that. But yeah, because Saturday is going to be the Dig, DSG, SR, Leon. And then Sunday is going to be the upper bracket, everything. And then the Sunday after that is going to be the completion of the lower bracket.
You know what I also just realized? LTA North scheduling strikes again. The lower bracket qualification matches
Super Bowl
will be going head to head with Super Bowl Sunday. So expect week 3 viewership to not be the strongest. Now, there's not like a huge crossover between football fans and esports fans. I don't think there is some, but like,
I
don't
disagree.
expect me to be watching, LTA.
On a normal Sunday, I would agree with you, Sandy, but it is Super Bowl in North America, and despite it being freaking Chiefs versus Eagles again, it's still Super Bowl.
I know, and as much as I like watched the games this weekend or yesterday, I guess, and it was indeed my nightmare Super Bowl scenario. I will still be watching. I will be hate watching the Super Bowl. Nevertheless, so.
Personally, I'm just planning to tune in for Kendrick Lamar, and
then dip right on back out.
Which fair enough.
Stick around, we'll see.
If you go to a Super Bowl party, you don't physically have to watch the Super Bowl at all. You could spend the entire time just talking to people, hanging out in the kitchen, eating,
just getting fat off of all the great
chips and dip,
food.
Whatever. Those little, tiny little hot dogs, Somebody's gonna bring the meatballs with that weird sweet sauce that people bring with the meatballs in the crock pot. Classic Super Bowl, nosh right there.
Honestly, yeah.
Totally. All right. Well, I think the jury is still going to be out on where to swing with Dig DSG and Shopify Leon. So excited to see how that goes on Saturday. I'll be pondering my picks. That's for sure.
I got to consider that one more. Those are going to be close.
And that is basically it. I have one last thing. It's going to be I forgot to mention this to you fellas, but it's a bit of a rant. A bit of a rant. I have a rant about FlyQuest Valorant.
Okay.
And you might have seen a tweet from me on the Flight Check account about this earlier in the week. But the long and short of it is that FlyQuest Red Valorant has been overwhelmingly dropped by the org, with very little information as to why, what the plans are going forward, or really any communication at all besides the classic esports moment of thank you Starbound, thank you Dodonut, thank you blah, and thank you Lace, thank you whoever was on the team. I think they dropped Starbound, Evie, and Thea. Thea most recently. Dodonut had gone up to Shopify Rebellion GC. Amazingly for her, they just qualified to the Valorant NA Challengers League. So they're the first Game Changers team to do that, which is super cool. So I will certainly be rooting for Shopify Rebellion. I think it's gold is how they're branding the Game Changers team now. So the problem I have with this is that there is now no communication. There's been almost zero communication about what the future of the program is going to be on the Valorant side from FlyQuest management. There was a series of departures. Assistant coach King Fred left earlier in January. Coach Jovi left for his VCT team, Talon. Dodonut left for Shopify Rebellion. And now Starbound, Evie, and Thea, all gone. Only Sonder is left on the team, according to VLR.gg. And there's been no, video. There's been no, even a simple, text, based, post on the FlyQuest Red account or from FlyQuest socials. There's been no indication of, hey, we've appreciated the players' time with us, but we've got big plans for the 2025 GC season. There's been no communication about hey, we've been reevaluating, finances, and it's just not financially smart for us to continue supporting a Valorant team at this time. So we're going to dip out of the scene. And it's just a severe lack of communication on this front that is frankly frustrating, from a team that has been pretty good about communication when it comes to League of Legends. We have seen videos come out from Papa Smithy on the Twitter account about like, hey, here's here's our off-season update. Here's what we've been thinking. Here's why we did this. We had Andy Barton on the show literally 2 weeks ago to talk about off-season and how things went and what the plans are going into the new season. So it's just a little frustrating to me that the Valorant team does not get that same treatment, and that the players simply get a thank you next post from the org. So I expect better from FlyQuest, especially for a marginalized group of people who do not often get as much light shed on them as they deserve, especially in comparison to some of the more popular teams and players that the org sponsors and supports. So I hope to hear something soon from the org regarding what the plans are in the future. I think one last point on this, it was very unfortunate, I think, that that this announcement came out with only like a day or so to spare before Game Changers qualifier rosters locked. So not a lot of, so if I just take this at face value, that the players were like notified of this the day the announcement came out, 24 hours or less to find a GC team to try to qualify for Game Changers 4 is not a lot of time. And I haven't checked in a couple days, but I don't know if they formed their own team or if they got signed elsewhere or anything like that. So I think it's very unfortunate, and I hope to see better from the org in the near future. I know that was a lot, and I know you guys were like loosely tracking some of this. Any comments or thoughts from y'all's side?
I'm just double checking while you were talking. I did see EVV did join a new team before the cutoff, so they are indeed. Sorry, I do not know the pronouns of EVV, so I'm gonna say they. They did make the cutoff. They are on a new team. They are on YFPX.
They made YFPX. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Dodo obviously made it to Shopify.
Yep.
And Starbound and Thea, unfortunately, I'm not seeing them on a team at all, so they are SOL. I'm hoping that maybe what happened was this was a team decision after they lost to Shopify in the qualifiers. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Sandy. It's not a great look to have so little communication or transparency in regards to suddenly just losing a whole team that you'd been having honestly a great time with. I had a blast following this team last year. So the fact that they're just suddenly gone and out of the league, and I understand this is a very shoddy league. It's very scrappily put together. The fact that it's just suddenly gone and out of there, that's a little distressing. I would love to hear something a little bit more in that regard, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Curly, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of an unfortunate series of events, because it was first we lost Donut, and then I saw also like Jovi announcement, and then there was like the triple release, and so it kind of just all happened like one and then another, and then suddenly the Valorant team for Red was gone. I don't know what that looked like behind the scenes. I don't know when people knew who was going when. Maybe contracts were kind of reached a little bit before, and then they had to try to figure something out, and then they didn't have as much time as they would have liked. They didn't know they had to scout or anything. And so I know it's tough to kind of figure out how to communicate that when that is the case. But I do think Valorant and FlyRed do deserve a lot more of that spotlight, because we've always got League of Legends at the front. It's what has really carried FlyQuest through existing period, through its inception to now. Um, I think we get a fair bit of communication on the CS team. The boys down in Aussie. So I think this whole scenario definitely could have afforded a bit more. But again, I don't know what happened behind the scenes about when people knew to do what. So it could be a resources issue, but still disappointing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We're going to close out from there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Flight Check. LTA continues on this weekend. Saturday's lower bracket. Sunday is upper bracket. C9 and FlyQuest playing, scheduled for 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Could be 6 p.m., depending on how long that TL 100 Thieves game matchup takes. So be sure to be ready at 6 p.m. Eastern Time to either watch Game 3 of TL 100 Thieves or Game 1 of FlyQuest Cloud9. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, because we'll also tweet out when the match is starting, and all of our reactions and thoughts to the weekend. You can catch the show at Flight Check Crew, myself at Santos DB, Nox at NoxWar with 2 R's, and Curly at Curly_Q_. Make sure to hop into the Flight Check Discord as well. All kinds of esports discussion and otherwise taking place in there. And if you missed any part of the episode, VOD is going to be up on YouTube tonight or tomorrow morning. If you are watching that and you say to yourself, hey, I'd like to come spam in the chat and catch the show live, you are in luck. We do broadcast the episode live, usually every Monday night, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at twitch.tv/FlightCheckCrew. Curly, any final notes, shoutouts, or plugs before we wrap up?
Oh, goodness. Wow. Just shout out to LTA being back. I guess being here, per se, because this is the first season of it. But I'm very happy to have so much LOL esports around. Actually, I looked at it Saturday, right? From midnight Eastern Standard Time all the way through 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there were games after games after games with a maximum chance of like maybe a 2-hour window because of the best of. You could hypothetically have woken up at like 11 p.m. and had your entire waking hours be League of Legends, which is insane. For the record.
Yeah, it's great.
Insane thing to do. Do not recommend it for your health. But it's pretty cool that that's an option, because that means no matter what time of day you're waking up, there is something for you to watch. And damn, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's for sure. Nox, how about you? Shoutouts, plugs, what you got for us tonight?
Shout out to Lunar New Year this coming Wednesday. Happy Lunar New Year to everyone who celebrates. Go eat lots of food, go get some Ong Paos, go receive some Ong Paos, hopefully receive some Ong Paos. It's always better when you receive versus when you give. Yeah, so other than that, glad LTA's back and looking forward to next week.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think unintentionally, we made pho tonight, so
nice.
We are celebrating Lunar New Year in some way, shape, or form, so there is that. My shout out this week is I'm actually gonna give it to Kangas for his debut on the LTA broadcast. I think he had been on it before, but as a full-time caster, I thought he did a great job. Great to have him. I think he brings a great energy and presence to the broadcast. Excited to see where he takes things in the future. I think it's going to be a great year with him on the cast. That is going to be all for us. We'll be back next week to talk about FlyQuest qualifying to Brazil, obviously. That'll be what we discuss. Yeah, clearly that'll be the discussion there. And we will also know some of the teams that they may be facing from the LTA South. So we'll be able to start talking about what that might look like. But for now, I'll just say stay safe out there and bite your teeth. Don't forget to hit the head on the nail, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Adios, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
Peace, y'all.